ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भां
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
वन्दे
वन्दे
गुरुपरम्पराम्।
गुरुपरम्पराम्
परम्पराम्
ॐ
ॐ
सहनाववतु
सहना
सहनाववतु
भवतु
सहनौ
सहनौ
भुनक्तु
भुनक्तु
वीर्यं
सह
सह
वीर्यं
वीर्यं
करवावहै
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 तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
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 शान्ति
ॐ
शान्तिः
शान्ति
शान्तिः
शान्तिः।
शान्तिः
ॐ तत्सत्। नमः शिवाय। हरि ओम्।
Om Tat Sat. Om Namah
ॐ
Shivaya.
नमः शिवाय।
So we are on Anuvaka number 8 of Brahmananda Valli. So those of you who was using mantra pushpam, page number 26, the last line. After Shrotriyasya Chaka Matasya, we will chant. Te ye shatam ajana janam devanam anandaha.
Te ye shatama jana janan devanamaanandaha.
Ek karma devanam anandaha.
Sa eka karma devanamanandaha.
Ye karmana devanapi yanti.
Ye karmana
कर्मणा
devanapi
देवानपि
anti.
यन्ति
Shrotriyasya chaka mahatasya.
श्रोत्रियस्य
Shrotriyasya
चाकामहतस्य
chakamatasya.
Te ye shatam karma devanam anandaha.
Te ye
शतं
शतं
कर्मदेवानां देवानामानन्दाः
shatama
एको देवानामानन्दः
स एको
देवानामानन्दः
देवानामानन्दः
श्रोत्रियस्य चाकामहतस्य
श्रोत्रियस्य
श्रोत्रियस्य
श्रोत्रियस्य चाकामहतस्य
चाकामहतस्य
ते ये शतं देवानामानन्दः
ते
ते
ये
शतं देवानामानन्दः
स एक इन्द्रियस्यानन्दः
स एक
एक इन्द्रस्य नन्दः
श्रोत्रियस्य चाकामहतस्य
श्रोत्रियस्य
श्रोत्रियस्य
चाकामहतस्य
चाकामहतस्य
ते ये शतम् इन्द्रियस्यानन्दः
ते ये
ते शतमिन्द्रियस्यानन्दः
स एको बृहस्पतेरानन्दः
स
स
एको
एको
बृहस्पतिरानन्दः
बृहस्पतिरानन्दः
श्रोत्रियस्य चाकामहतस्य
श्रोत्रियस्य
श्रोत्रियस्य
चाकामहतस्य
चाकामहतस्य
ये शतं बृहस्पतेरानन्दः
ते
ते
ये
ये शतं
बृहस्पतिरानन्दः
बृहस्पतिरानन्दः
स एकः प्रजापतेरानन्दः
स
स
एक
एकः
एकः
प्रजापतिरानन्दः
प्रजापतिरानन्दः
श्रोत्रियस्य चाकामहतस्य
श्रोत्रियस्य
श्रोत्रियस्य चाकामहतस्य
चाकामहतस्य
ते ये शतं प्रजापतेरानन्दः
ते
ते
ये शतं
शतं
प्रजापतिरानन्दः
प्रजापतेरानन्दाः
स एको ब्रह्मण आनन्दः
स
स
एको
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 ब्रह्मण
ब्रह्मणः
आनन्दः
आनन्दः
श्रोत्रियस्य चाकामहतस्य
श्रोत्रियस्य
श्रोत्रियस्य
चाकामहतस्य
चाकामहतस्य
यश्चायं पुरुषे
यश्चायं
यश्चायं
पुरुषे
पुरुषे
यश्चासावादित्ये
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 स एकः
स
स
एकः
एकः
स एवं वित्
स
स
एवं
एवं
वित्
वित्
अस्माल्लोकात् प्रेत्य
अस्मान्
अस्मात्
लोकात्
लोकात्
प्रेत्य
प्रेत्य
एतमन्नमयम् आत्मानम् उपसंक्रामति
एतम् अन्नमय
एतमन्नमयमात्मानम्
आत्मानम् उपसंक्रामति
उपसङ्क्रामति
एतं प्राणमय आत्मानम् उपसंक्रामति
एतं
एतं
एतम् प्राणमयमात्मानम्
प्राणमयमात्मानम्
उपसंक्रामति
उपसङ्क्रामति
एतं मनोमयमात्मानम् उपसंक्रामति
एतं
एतम्
एतं
मनोमयमात्मानम्
मनोमयमात्मानम् उपसङ्क्रामति
उपसंक्रामति
एतं विज्ञानमयमात्मानम् उपसंक्रामति
एतं विज्ञानमयमात्मानमुपसंक्रामति
एतम् आनन्दमयम् आत्मानम् उपसंक्रामति
एतम्
आनन्दमयमात्मानमुपसंक्रामति
तदप्येष श्लोको भवति.
तदप्येष श्लोको भवति.
Okay. So, very long Anuvaka. We have finished 5 levels so far of Ananda: Manushya Ananda, Manushya Gandharva Ananda, Deva Gandharva Ananda, Chiralokanam Ananda, Karma Deva Ananda. Right. Now he goes to the next level, the 6th level. So he says, Teye Shatam Karma Devanam Devanam Anandaha. 100 units of Shatam Karma Devanam Anandaha. 100 units of the Ananda of Karma Devas is what? Ekam Devanam Ananda. Is the unit of one Ananda of the Devas. So he is dividing the Devas into 2. Karma Deva and Deva. So Karma Deva is one category of resident of Svargaloka, and the Deva has a higher position than the Karma Deva. So somewhere in the Puranas, you will find that Karma Devas, there are 33 crores, and the Devas are only 33. So they have a higher position than the Karma Deva. And Shankaracharya writes in his commentary that these 33 Devas, he gives the listing. He says 8 Vasavahas, 11 Rudras, 12 Adityas, and Indra Deva, and Prajapati. So that's 33. 8 and 11, 19, and 12, 31, and 2, 33. Right. So these are 33. Now, remember that karma plus upasana gives a better punyam than karma alone. So karma deva is a person who has come to Swarga because of karma alone. Deva is a person who has come to Swarga because of better punyam. Karma plus upasana. Therefore, he has a higher status. And then Shruti says, Shrotriyasya Chaka Mahatasya. That same Ananda which the Deva enjoys, not the Karma Deva. The Deva enjoys. That Ananda can be got by a person who has Vairagyam up to Karma Devanam Lokaha. So if you don't want to go to Karma Devanam Loka, you have your Vairagyam for that, dispassion for that. The same Ananda that the Deva gets, you can get. Then the next level. So Teye Shatam Devanam Ananda. 100 units of the Ananda of the Devas is equal to what? Eka Indriyasya Ananda is equal to Ananda that king of the Devas has, Indra has, right? And again the same thing, Shrotriyasya Chaka Mahatasya, that same Ananda can be got by a Viveki if he has Vairagyam for where? For one level lower. So that's Devananda Lokaha. If he has Vairagyam, then he can get the same Ananda that Indra gets, right? And that is why in Tattvabodha we saw that there is Iha Bhoga and Paraloka Bhoga. Both are included there. So Phala Bhaga Viragaha we had said that there should be Bhoga Viragaha for the Lokaphalam. Then you get this particular Ananda. Then you go to the next level. So they are all very, very, very uniformly documented. So Teya Shatam Indriyasya Anandaha. You take 100 units of Indra, Lord Indra's Anandaha. It is equal to what? So Eko Brahaspate Anandaha. It is equal to one Ananda of the Brahaspati, right? The Guru of the gods. So Brahati is basically another word for what? Therefore, Brahaspati means Vachaspati, the Lord of words. And words indicating wisdom. So the Lord of wisdom. And that's why the Guru of the Lords. Deva Guru is Brahaspati. Then Srotriyasya Chaka Mahatasya. That same Ananda can be enjoyed where? By the Manushya in Manushya Loka, providing he has got Vairagyam for Indraloka Ananda. So if he has Vairagyam for Indraloka Ananda, he will automatically get the next higher Ananda, which is Brahaspati Ananda. Then we go to the ninth level, one level, penultimate level. So Te Shatam Brahaspati Ananda, 100 units of Brahaspati Ananda, Sa Ekaha Prajapati Ananda. So 100 units of Brahaspati Ananda is equal to 1 unit of Prajapati. Now you might have a confusion. Who is Prajapati?
Virat. Virata.
Prajapati. That's very important to remember. Prajapati is Virat, not Hiranyagarbha. Why? Because Prajapati is also one step only over there. And Srotriyasya Chakamahatasya. So that Ananda is enjoyed by a person. Which Ananda? Prajapati's Ananda is enjoyed by a person in Manusya Loka who has Vairagyam for Prajapati Ananda. Then we come to the final level. Te Shatam Prajapati Ananda, 100 units of Prajapati, Virat's Ananda is equal to Eko Brahmana Ananda. So, Brahmana is who here?
Hiranyagarbha.
What is the logic? Why can it not be Brahman?
Because one level above Virat is this Samashti Sukshma Prapanchana.
That is one logic. But what is
And also
another more, unbreakable logic?
that is Nirguna and this is Saguna. So how can Nirguna have that?
No. Anybody else?
This is measured, so it should not be measurable.
What are the right
Infinite.
words? What are the right words?
Aprameya.
Kosha Ananda.
This is Koshananda. We are
Yes,
talking about Koshananda, reflected Ananda so far.
Yes.
Okay. And therefore, Hiranyagarbha is also reflected Ananda. Therefore, the Brahmana cannot be Brahma. It has to be Lord Brahmaji, Hiranyagarbha. And then he says, Srotriyasya Chaka Mahatasya. If as a Manusya in Manusya Loka, you have enough dispassion and Viveka to have Vairagyam for Prajapati Ananda, then you have the highest experiential Ananda available in the universe, which is what the Ananda which Hiranyagarbha has. The highest sense pleasure in Hiranyagarbha is that of Hiranyagarbha, who is in Brahmaloka. Right. Remember that while we are saying all this, we are not saying that, don't go after sense pleasures. We do not condemn sense pleasures. But we are saying that instead of trying to do the karma and the upasana necessary to take you to those lokas and enjoy these sense pleasures in later life, you can have that same ananda here itself, now itself, in this world. How? By the necessary vairagya. And therefore, tyagi always is having a higher status than the bhogi. The one who renounces is always respected more than the one who enjoys. Now, Shankara says here, he gives a nice comment. He says that all the lower anandas mentioned earlier, all the 9 steps mentioned earlier, 9 anandas mentioned earlier, yatra are included in that Hiranyagarbha ananda. Why? Because all the punyams, punyam means that are punya phalam arising from karma and upasana, which are the cause for attaining the Hiranyagarbha loka. This punyam is also included in all the lower levels. Right? And here he says upasana also. Include the karma and the upasana, punyam rising from them. They are included in all the lower levels also. Then the vairagyam at the Hiranyagarbha level, he says, is however the most superior vairagyam. So, and then he writes a very nice statement, which I will actually give you Sanskrit also. He says, Tasyesha Ananda. This superior most Vishayananda The highest level of Vishayananda experienced as Hiranyagarbha Ananda can be experienced by what? By a person in Manushaloka, providing he has three qualities. Right? He should be Shotriyena, having done Shravanam. He should be Avrajinena, which means he should be have Chitta Shuddhi, free of Papam, Sadhana Chatushtayam, and Akamahatena. He should have Vairagya. So three qualifications are very, very necessary for experiencing the Ananda. Not just Hiranyagarbhananda, any of the levels, you have to have these three qualifications. What are they? You should have studied scriptures. You should have got sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, and you should have got vairagya. These three are necessary for any of the levels of pratibimba ananda, starting from manushya ananda at the manushya level up to hiranyagarbha ananda. And then he makes a very, very subtle idea over here. Out of these three things, Shravanam, that is the knowledge out of Shravanam, sadhana chatushtayam, and dispassion, vairagya. He says two of them are the same at all the levels of Ananda. Whether you are at Manushya Ananda level or whether you are at Hiranyagarbha Ananda level, which are true, the Jnanam or arising out of Shravanam is the same. It is not that you have to have more and more Jnanam as you are going up, right? Because the Jnanam is only one. Aham Brahmasmi. That Jnanam should be there. Now, if you are got the Jnanam at the Manushya level, that Jnanam is not going to change as you move up to the Hiranyagarbha Ananda level. So Jnanam is the same level. And Chitta Shuddhi also is the same level. So Jnanam and Chitta Shuddhi are the same in all the levels. But he says there is a successive gradation in Vairagya. At each higher loka, higher successive loka, the Vairagyam becomes more and more pronounced. And then he makes a important statement. Therefore, while Jnanam and Chitta are necessary for sadhaka, for the enjoyment of Pratibimba Ananda, Vairagyam is the most important qualification. Why? Because Vairagyam directly gives Pratibimba Ananda that we have seen just now. Right? Because it is Vairagyam, you have to have the lower loka, then you get the Ananda from the higher loka. Therefore, Vairagyam is a direct tool, a direct method, sakshat sadhanam for Pratibimba Ananda. And not only that, it also helps you in, because of the vairagya which you have, it also helps you in gaining jnana. And therefore, it will also indirect sadhana for what? Bimba Ananda also. The vairagyam, therefore, is the most important sadhana for a seeker. First, it gives you the pratibimba ananda, and then, if you choose to, and then it gives you the jnana, and therefore kosha ananda. Okay. So we have talked about all the kosha anandas. What is left?
Atmananda.
Atmananda. So then Shankara gives a very nice explanation over here. He says, so in that Bimbananda, in the original Brahman, original consciousness, OC, there is no definition, there is no differentiation of the experienced Ananda and the experiencer of the Ananda. There is no experiencer, experienced division. Why is that so? Because Atma is Advaita, has no divisions. So, out of this, what is the corollary? That Pratibimba Ananda, reflected Ananda, experiential Ananda, and sorrow both belong to which Satyam? Vyavaharika or Paramarthika?
Vyavarika.
Vyavaharika.
Vyavaharika.
Because both Pratibimba Ananda and this aura belong to Vyavaharika system, they cannot coexist. That is why you find that nobody is happy and sad at the same time, right? You are either happy or you are sad because they are opposing emotions. They are opposing vrittis. So where there is Pratibimba Ananda, Dukkham cannot exist in Vyavaharika. While Bimbananda is Paramarthika and Dukkham is Vyavaharika. They belong to two different levels of reality. Therefore, they can coexist. Do you get the idea? What is the implication of the statement? It's a very important implication. What is that? Don't think that once you are a jnani, you will never be sad. So don't judge your jnanam or moksha on the basis of your mind. So we'll talk about this later, but I'm just putting this idea for you. That jnanam, having jnanam, becoming a jnani, knowing your Brahman has nothing to do with your mind. Never judge yourself saying that I am studied so much. For 10 years I've been studying, and yet my mind is disturbed, and therefore I cannot be a jnani. That's a wrong conclusion. Jnani is very simple. Do you know your Brahman or not? Unshakably, do you know? If you do, then you are jnani. Okay. Now let us look at the other words. Sa Yaschayam Purushaha Yascha Savaditye Sa Ekaha. So these three statements put together is a Mahavakya. Let us see how. Sa Yaha Ayam Purushaha. So Sa Ayam, this Anandaha, Yah Purushaha, which is present in the Purushaha. Right? So the first sentence means that Ananda which is present in a Manusya. Yaha Savaditye. Asau, Yaha, Asau, Ada. Savaditye. Yaha, Asau, Aditya. That same Ananda, which is present in the Purusha, the Manusya, Aditya, is also present in Aditya. So Aditya here is Hiranyagarbha. Okay. Why? Because Hiranyagarbha is very often invoked on the sun, on Surya Devata. Therefore, here it is used in the sense of Hiranyagarbha. So the first one is saying that Ananda which is there in the human being, Purushaha, is also the same Ananda which is present in Hiranyagarbha. Sa Ekaha, that's the last one, is the equation. That's what the Mahavakyam. First is Purushaha, second is Hiranyagarbha, and the third statement is Sa Ekaha, both are the same. Therefore, it's the equation, it's a Mahavakyam. So, what is it saying? That the Ananda in a human being and the Ananda Hiranyagarbha, they are the same. Exactly the same. Now the question comes, we saw the whole Ananda Mimamsa. We started with Manushya Ananda, which is how much? And we said that Manushya Ananda is one unit of Ananda. And we arrived at 10 different levels. Hiranyagarbha was the 10th level. So if you go back and put all the zeros there, 100 times, 100 times, you will find there are 20 zeros. So the Hiranyagarbha Ananda is 1 followed by 20 zeros. And therefore, Manusya Ananda is equal to Hiranyagarbha Ananda. The Vachyartham cannot be taken. Because they are obviously different since the number of zeros are different. So, but Shruti is Pramanam. And what is the rule? When you always have to take Vachyartham to understand for a statement. If the Vachyartham is illogical and the equation therefore is not going to be there, then only are you allowed to take the Lakshya. Right? So here what happens? 1 0 is obviously not equal to 20 zeros. And therefore, the Vachyartham doesn't work. Therefore, you take Lakshyartham. What is the Lakshyartham? what is behind, what is the lakshyartham of that Manusya behind the 1 unit of Manusya Ananda? You must remember that it is reflected Ananda. Therefore, the source of that is what? It is the original Ananda, the Bimba Ananda. So, the support of that 1 unit of Manusya Ananda is Bimba Ananda. Similarly, the support of Hiranyagarbhananda is also Bimbananda. Bimbananda is not measurable. So you cannot say there are so many units. You have to simply say Bimbananda. Behind the 1 unit of Manusyananda, as well as the 1 unit of Hiranyagarbhananda, there is only Bimbananda. And therefore you have to drop the reflecting media. The Manusya body and the Hiranyagarbha body you drop. What remains is only the ungraded Bimbananda. Then the equation is correct. Okay. Therefore, the Atmananda is Hiranyagarbha. That's correct. There is no difference in the original. All the 7 levels, all the 10 levels are dependent upon the reflections. But in the original, Atmananda, Bimbananda, there is no change. And therefore, what do? You stop looking for reflected Anand, knowing that I am the very source of any level of reflected Ananda. That stopping of the looking for Ananda by the understanding that I am the original source, that itself is called the acquisition of Ananda. You understood that you are the source. Now let's go back to the Moolam. Saya evam with. So this is another very important Shruti. It is called Upasangra Manasruti. Upasangra Manasruti. The essence of the Shruti is what? That Jnani will merge into Brahman. And here we should remember the 3 questions. What were the 3 questions?
The first presumed one was whether Brahman exists. The second
Yes.
was will the Ajnani merge with Brahman? And the third was will the Jnani merge with Brahman?
Correct. So these are 3. Now here, the first question has been answered. Right? Starting from the 6th Anuvaka up to this part of the 8th Anuvaka. What is the answer? Yes, Brahman exists. What are the reasons? Well, we saw some of the reasons. From the fact that the Karya Prapancha exists. Because of the fact that cause exists. The universe exists as a product. Therefore, the Karanam must exist. Therefore, Brahman exists. We saw that Jnani is always happy without depending upon Nivishayas. That happiness is Brahmananda coming from within him. And therefore, Brahman exists. We saw that the entire body-mind complexes, all the body-mind complexes, they function only because of Brahman. Therefore, Brahman exists. We saw that Jnani is always secure, Abhayam. And the source of that Abhayam is Brahman only. Therefore, Brahman exists. And we saw that Brahman is a cause of fear for the Ajnani, a misunderstood Brahman. Therefore, Brahman exists. And therefore, that first question has been answered. What about the second and the third question? Firstly, that the framing of the question is wrong. Because you are Brahman. Whether you are Jnani or Ajnani, you are still Brahman. What is the difference? The Ajnani does not know that he is Brahman. So he will continue to search. The Jnani knows that he is Brahman. So there is no search for him. And therefore, figuratively, you say that Jnani has merged Brahman, but Ajnani has not merged. It's only a compromised answer. It is like you are traveling by road. Let us say you're going to a very little known village called X, village X. That village has no signposts, nothing. So you are driving, and there are two people who are driving, you and a friend in a different vehicle. Right? Now you have been asking questions about this place on the way. So and when you come to that place, you ask, you know, where is this X village? And somebody tells you it's here. So for you, the search is over. You have reached. Right? Your friend is also reached. He is also standing next to you, another car. But he has not asked. And so he thinks that he has to go forward. And therefore he goes forward. Right? So as long as both of you are standing there, both are in the same place. But one knows he has reached. So his travel is over. One doesn't know he has reached. So his travel is not over. But the fact remains that both of you are in the same village. That is the same idea here. The Jnani continues his life because of prarabdha, but he has nothing more to do. Ajnani thinks he is looking for Brahman. So he is still continuing his journey. Now, therefore, once you say, there is a problem with this. Once you say that a Jnani merges into Brahman, there is an unwritten idea, unsaid idea, that Ajnani does not merge. Right? And therefore, the question is answered here by implication. You know that so because you say that Jnani merges, because he knows, you say that Ajnani does not merge because he does not know. But really speaking, both are Brahman. One knows, one does not. So, for answering this final question, which is what? Does Jnani merge or not? The Upasangrana Shruti is there. Upasangramana Shruti. How many methods are there for getting Ananda? We have seen, right? How many methods are there for getting Atmananda? First answer is that there is no need to get Atmananda because you are the very Ananda itself, the Chaitanyam, the consciousness. Okay. Then how should you stop the search for Ananda? By understanding that you are what you are seeking. Remember that the very search for Brahman is the denial of the fact that you are Brahman. It is only by understanding that you are Brahman that the search ends. So he says here, Saya evam with. The one who knows that he is Ananda in this way. Evam with. The one who knows in this manner only that he knows Ananda. That is Atmananda. Asmat lokat pretya. Literal translation, Asmat lokat pretya, leaves this world. Literal translation. But Shankara adds here, Pretya means turns away from the external world for support. He does not depend upon the universe anymore outside him, universe outside him, for Anandaha. Therefore, he has no more dependence upon events, objects, or people for his happiness. This turning away, this independence is referred to here as Asmat Lokat Pretya. Literally meaning living the world, but to be understood as turning away from the world, turning away from the dependence on the world for Anand. And therefore, Etam Annamayam Atmanam Upasankramati. Upasankramati means transcends or crosses over. Right? So Upasankramati has to be understood as giving up the identification with whatever entity you're talking about. What is the entity here? Etam Annamayam Atmanam Upasankramati. Annamayam Atmanam is Annamaya Kosha in this context. So he says, in this way, This jnani, having turned away from the external world, having no more dependence upon the external world for his ananda, for his peace, he transcends, he crosses over, he drops the identification with the Annamaya Kosha. That is the first. Then, etam pranamaya atmanam upasankramati. He drops the identification with the pranamaya kosha. Then etam manomaya atmanam upasankramati. He drops the abhimanam with manomaya kosha. Etam vijnanamayam atmanam upasankramati. He drops the abhimanam with vijnanamaya kosha. Etam anandamaya atmanam upasankramati. He drops the abhimanam with anandamaya kosha. Where then does he remain? He transcends all the koshas and he abides in his nature as Atmananda. So abiding in his nature, remember, literally means, actually has to be correctly and practically understood as meaning constantly aware of the fact that I am Atma. He has understood that he is the very Atmananda himself. He does not need the world at all. He does not need the five koshas, and therefore he drops the identification with the five koshas. And tadapi esha sloko bhavati. With regard to this teaching, there is a rig mantra which comes in Anuvaka number 9. So Rituji, I will leave it to you to chant that Anuvaka.
ॐ यतो वाचो निवर्तन्ते अप्राप्य मनसा सह आनन्दं ब्रह्मणो विद्वान् न बिभेति कुतश्च नेति एतगुं हवावन तपति किमहगुं साधुना करवम् किमहं पापमकरवमिति स य एवं विद्वानेते आत्मानज्ञस्पृणुते उभे वैष एते आत्मानज्ञस्पृणुते य एवं वेद इत्युपनिषत्.
So the rig mantra is from Yato Vacho Nivartante until Nabhibeti Kutashchana Eti. The iti there indicates the end of the quotation. So let's look. Yato Vacho Nivartante. Very, very famous mantra. From that, where the words return unsuccessfully. So Yato Vacho Nivartante. From that Brahman, words return. Manasa Saha means along with the mind. Why do they return? Aprapya. Because they have been unsuccessful in grasping that Brahman. So now, remember here, and Shankara talks about this, he says that words have an intrinsic limitation. So there is idea in Shruti that the words can reveal the object. Pada can reveal padartha. Pada is the words. Padartha is the object. The object of the words is called padartha. So pada can reveal padartha only if the object fulfills five conditions. Dravyam, matter, gunas, jati, kriya, sambandha. The object should have some of these conditions. Then only you can talk about it. These are all attributes. Dravyam, guna, jati, kriya, sambandha. But Brahman doesn't have any attribute. And therefore, because of the limitation of not having attributes, words cannot be used in the context of Brahman. Because the five conditions are not fulfilled. Any of these five conditions are not fulfilled. At least if Brahman had a jati, male, female, you could talk about it. Or it did some action, kriya, talk about it. Or it had some gunas, talk about it. Or it was material in nature, you could talk about it. or it had some connection with somebody, sambandha. You could talk about it. But since none of these conditions are fulfilled, how do you use words to describe? Because words can describe only one of these five or all of these five, right? Therefore, people, people when they employ words which are finite in nature in an attempt to reveal the infinite Brahman, those words can never fulfill their purpose. And therefore, nivartante, those words return back unsuccessfully, aprapya, without having succeeded in revealing Brahman. And not only the words return, aprapya manasa saha, along with the mind also. Why mind? Because remember that wherever, and this is a very important idea for us, wherever words can be used, wherever words can function, vritti, thoughts can also function, right? It doesn't matter whether the object which is being, you know, talked about by either the thoughts or the words, whether the object is capable of being grasped by the indriyas. Whether or not your sense organs can grasp an object, words can function and thoughts can function. Very, very subtle idea. For example, let's take an apple. Apple is amenable to sensory grasp, right? It is indriya gocharam. My sense organs can grasp it, can handle it. Eyes can see it, hands can touch it, nose can smell it, right? Therefore, the apple is indriya gocharam. And therefore, I can think about the apple and I can use words to describe it. So, thoughts can function and words can function. Can you think about an object which is indriya agocharam, but still you can think about it and talk about it?
Akasha.
Akasha, you can feel actually. Space can be felt. The sense of space is very much there in your mind. Okay, let's take it heaven, Swargaloka, right? Or Indra Devata. Is it amenable to your Indriyas? No. So it is Atindriya. But can you conceive of it? Yes. Your mind can conceive of Swarga. Therefore, you have thoughts and therefore your words. Therefore, this is a very important idea. Wherever words can function, thoughts can also function. And whether or not your sense organs are capable of grasping that object, it doesn't matter. In both cases, words and thoughts can function. Right? So, what is the purpose of the thoughts and the words here? To reveal Brahman. And when you say yato vacho nivartante, when the words have been unsuccessful in revealing Brahman, it also means that it is not possible to have thoughts about Brahman as an object. And therefore, along with the words, the thoughts are also unsuccessful in revealing Brahman. Yato vacho nivartante aprapya manasa saha. Neither the words nor your thoughts can reveal Brahman to you. If you want to understand more clearly, you add in brackets as an object of your thoughts or words. As a Vishaya, Brahman cannot be revealed. Why? Because it is not an object of thoughts and it is not an object of words. What is Brahman? It is the very subject, I myself. Then come back to the Moolam. Anandam Brahmano Vidvan na bibeti kutaschana iti. Vidvan na bibeti. A jnani is not afraid kutaschanaha of anything in this universe. Why? Ananda Brahma. He knows his real nature is Ananda Brahman. He is not worried about his arrival or departure. That Ananda is always he himself. It can never be lost. And therefore, na viveti. He is not afraid. Okay. When you say afraid, freedom from fear can be from two standpoints. From the standpoint of the jnani Atma, why is there no fear?
There is no Dvaitam.
There is no Dvaitam. There is nobody else. He knows Atma. He is the Atma who is everywhere and everybody. So he has no fear. The Jnani, as the Atma, will never have any fear. Na bibeti. But you can also talk about the mind of the Jnani. Is it free from fear always?
No, that will be there at Vyavaharika level.
The mind is Anatma.
Yeah, it is Jada.
Anatma is subject to change.
Hmm.
Shadvikara. And therefore, you can never make a statement that any mind, even that of the most accomplished jnani, is ever free from fear or never free from fear. There will be a time when it will have no fear. Like most of us, there are times when we don't have fear. But from the standpoint of the mind, even if it's a jnani's mind, remember that freedom from fear comes in time and therefore goes in time. Therefore, remember that at the level of the mind, purely because of jnana, freedom from fear can never happen. Even when you are a jnani, when you are firmly established in the idea that I am Brahman alone, there are two aspects. You, jnani as Brahman, Atma, at that level there is no fear. But your mind, they will always be subject to problems. Jnanam will decrease the impact of those problems, yes, but it will be subject to the problems. And Vidyaranya, there's a very famous Acharya called Vidyaranya. So he has a very beautiful book called, text called Jivan Mukti Viveka. So in that text, he talks about this. He says Jnanam requires the support of sadhana chatushta sampatti. Of course, we all know that. But especially Shama and Vairagya. What is Shama?
Mano Nigraha.
Mano Nigraha. It is the ability to displace thoughts which you don't want. The control over the mind means Mano Nigraha means what? You can keep only thoughts which you want and reject thoughts which you don't want. And this skill does not come through through jnana. This skill only comes through repeated practice of mind control. Right? Therefore, Vidyaranya says that even if you are a jnani, you should continuously work on sadhana chatushtaya sampatti. Right? Why? Because at the level of the mind, the removal of fear is always relative. We have talked about it in the past in the terms of FIR reduction. FIR can never be zero. I have said so many times. It can only reduce. Therefore, at the mental level, there can be no statement that I have no fear, absolutely free from fear. You are free from fear relatively, right? And If you remember chapter 2, Thita Prajnaha is dealing with this relative freedom from fear. How? Through sadhana chatushtayam. Where is fear completely absent? At the level of the Atma. And therefore, this mantra is talking about Bhaya Nivrittihi from the point of Atma. Since everything is negated, including the mind, which is the source of the fear, where is the question of the fear? Right? Iti. This is the end of the mantra. And with this Rig mantra, the Ananda Mimamsa topic is over. So to summarize, Atmananda can be attained through Jnana. Only one method. Koshananda, experiential Ananda, can be obtained through two methods. Sense objects and Vairagya. A Jnani has got Jnanam, therefore he has Atmananda. If a Jnani has got Jnanam, he has got Sadhana Chatushtayam also. Therefore, he has got Vairagyam also. Therefore, the Jnani has both Koshananda and Atmananda. Jnani, every Jnani has got Bimbananda and Pratibimba Ananda. Both. Bimbananda is permanent. Pratibimba Ananda comes and goes. Right? So all the Ananda you can say, which we saw, starting from Manushya Ananda to Hiranyagarbha Ananda, the Jnani can experience. Okay. Now, we already saw that there is a figuratively saying that Jnani attained Brahman, and there is a figuratively saying that Ajnani does not attain Brahman. So this idea we should remember. Okay, so this is the end of the Koshananda and all that. So now there is a few verses few statements, few vakyams, which glorify the Jnani. Right? So he says, this Jnani, as a result of the knowledge, has two very major advantages in his mind. Of course, he has become a Jivan Mukta, right? That is the first one. That is, I'm not counting that. But he gets over two major problems with all human beings face. Both are psychological problems, emotional problems. One is regret, and one is worry. So that is said here. Kim aham sadhuna karam. Why did I not do these things, good things? Why did I not do all these good activities? Which all of us have. No? I could have done this better. I should have done this instead. So worry over omissions. And kim aham apam akaravam iti. Why did I commit this particular actions? So two very major expressions of samsara, two very strong psychological and emotional problems. Regret over what you have done and worry also is there, right? Worry over omissions, and regret over commission. Why did I not do this? Is a worry. Why did I do this? Is a regret. So worry and regret both he doesn't have. So etam ha vavana tapati. These two emotions, worries and regrets, will not disturb the jnani. Tapati literally means burn him. It will not disturb the jnani. Why? Saye evam vidvanete atmanam srunate. The jnani sees all these omissions and commissions and papam and punyam as part of the mithya samsara, not which doesn't exist separate from himself. Right? So just as my dream sin, the sin I committed in my dream, does not exist separately from me, and when I wake up, I am not bothered about those dream sins. Similarly, from the higher paramarthika order of reality of his jnanam, these problems become insignificant. Therefore, ubhe aivesha ete atmanam srunate. These two, ubhe, what papam and punyam, eshaha, this wise person, atmanam srunate, he knows that they are both mithya, they are not separate from him. So he looks upon them both as Atma. So a very important point is made. Freedom from any form of regret and freedom from any form of guilt. This is a very powerful expression of Jivan Mukti. Remember, why do you talk about guilt? Because remember, a jnani, even a jnani is not sarvajna because he's a jiva. And therefore, in spite of the best intentions, I can do actions which I don't intend, unintentional mistakes which hurt somebody. This is from the standpoint of view of the karta. And from the standpoint of view of the bhokta, others will continue to do things which will, you can say, hurt me. So this guilt and hurt, you learn to handle because of jnanam. And if we have learned to handle guilt and hurt, then we are jivan mukta. Right? In fact, even when you go to a psychiatrist, they will talk about these two things, guilt and hurt. But their approach is different. They will say that person is like that. Why do you get bothered by that? It's his nature. Examine why you are getting hurt. So that is the way that the medical world attacks the same problem, handling guilt and hurt. How does the jnani handle them? He falsifies the karta in himself and the bhokta in himself. He falsifies the ahankara, and therefore there is nobody to hurt and nobody to feel guilty. Right? And therefore, this is the most important idea here. That when you are working for a Brahma Satyam, you have to simultaneously work on Jagan Mithya. Only if Jagan Mithya happens, then only Brahma Satyam can happen. Ya evam Veda, the one who understands in this manner, one who is free from regret and guilt, he is the person who has understood the Upanishad. Iti Upanishad. Thus ends the Brahmanandavalli. Any questions? So remember the Jnanam portion is over in Taitriya. The next chapter, Bhriguvalli, focuses mainly on allied topics, not on Brahma Vidya, which we will take up in the next class. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.